probably
Right.
about to close.
He's a
on
good
it.
guy.
Justin, you are muted.
Well, that's awesome. We had a couple of technical difficulties here, but I'm glad everyone was able to get on. We'll give it a couple more minutes for people that weren't able to join, so we can let them join the party. All right. Let's see. I still have people texting me who are trying to get on. Okay. All right, we'll give it a few more minutes. We have a nice group here today. Some people that I haven't seen on any of my classes, which is fun. So hopefully we'll get some good contributions from people. Adam, I like the photo, man. Looking very businesslike.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm gonna open the video. I'm just.
Oh, whatever you want. Michael, nice to put a face to the name. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, I'm excited. Good to see you too.
Okay, so let's get cooking as our time is all very valuable here. Hey, John, good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Okay, Roxanne is with us. Now we can officially start the party. Okay, so we're talking about a subject that is near and dear to everyone's heart. The subject that causes incredible fear through the hearts and minds of every professional real estate agent, or I should say most. So that's cold calling. That's trying to connect with strangers. So what's the worst thing that can happen? Just taking a very quick poll, and I understand that some people have their screen hidden, but the people that don't, how many people have cold called more than 50 people in their career, just by show of hands? Okay, we have a few. Max, how you doing? Nice office. So what about more than 500 people in their career? Okay, so we still have the same hands going up. What about more than 1,000? Okay, same hands. Okay, so the people that have had their hands up, just by a show of hands, also, have you been hung up on when you've been cold calling? Okay, most. All right, everybody. Have you ever been called any kind of like profanity? Okay, all is still the same hands. And yet, we are all still here, alive and healthy, even after these experiences. So I just brought up examples of the two worst things that generally happen. You get hung up on in the middle of talking, no one likes that. Or someone drops some F-bombs on you in the middle of you trying to create some value for them. Okay, so that is as bad as it gets. That's the good news. Because we all have some fear associated with calling strangers. That's just kind of the way it is. And that's not something that we have to feel bad about. That's just part of who we are as humans. You know, we have a fear of rejection, you know, not feeling good enough. We have a fear of failure. You know, this is the same part of the brain that's triggered of, you know, physical manifestations as well. The brain can't really differentiate that flight, flee, freeze response. The brain looks at it the same way. You ever been in a situation where you've had anxiety around doing something? Like if it was even taking an exam, like taking it back to college or high school, and you couldn't remember an answer that you knew. And it's because that anxiety limits our brain's ability to function logically. It's the same thing. We can think about it in other examples. Remember the first time you tried to drive a car? You know, there's generally some fear associated with it, but what do? We did it anyway. So it's not about that cold calling is going to be perfect, or that there is no such thing as a perfect cold call. We could say a perfect cold call is when you're able to set up a meeting with a client, but maybe you just caught that prospective client at the right time, in the right mood, on the right day. So we know that we can never get to perfect with this, so that's okay. So it's really about, what do we do? Well, we can practice. We know that with practicing many things in life, if we practice enough, even if we don't get to the pinnacle of it, we're still going to feel a lot better about it. We're still going to be a little more calm about it, a little more relaxed. And we can all acknowledge that when we're more relaxed, the people that we're talking to are going to pick up on that. They're going to be more engaged with us in how we're communicating. So this one comes down to really, how do we come to this arena of a very stressful situation in a relaxed state? Sounds counterintuitive. How do we go against what our body and what our minds naturally would direct us to do? So we do it, like I said, with practice, with creating an environment that we know is suitable for this type of procedure. So how is your physical body situated? Are you sitting up straight? Do you go through any kind of a movement before you sit down and cold call? Are you getting your blood flowing? You know, kind of just even stretching, breathing deeply. Do you have an environment that's peaceful? You know, do you have good natural light coming in the room? Do you have some, nice music that you're listening to before you start? What state are you getting yourself into? That's a big deal. Let's not discount that, because it is a really, really big deal. And of course, it's different for everybody. So what are you personally doing that can get you into this state where you feel like, okay, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to take on the world. Does anyone who has had experience cold calling, does anyone want to kind of volunteer of what they do personally that helps them get into this state? Anybody? I'll start calling on
I can
people.
go ahead.
Yes, please. Laura.
For me, I love to read something that is real estate related. So I feel that I have like some knowledge. So I feel like strong, knowledgeable, that I'm like ready for questions. Sometimes I write notes of the bad calls I had if I like was asked a question that I did not answer right, even though I know the answer, as you said, but I got nervous and I just didn't know what to say. I write that down, so next time I get that question again, I'm just like ready to go, like answer it the right way. But yeah, like reading for me, it helps me just be more confident before the calls.
That's great. And I appreciate you sharing that. What are we really talking about here? We're talking about preparation. We're not supposed to be experts at this. That's not what this is about. But the more we prepare, the more we feel a little better about it. And Laura is bringing up an incredible point also that we talk about through a myriad of different facets of our business, which is learning what hasn't gone right, taking notes about that, and knowing that we can readjust. Knowing that we can say, okay, if I maybe tweak this one sentence, or I said this slightly differently, then maybe I would get a different result. So that's really important. It's in what we talk about in real estate in general. How do we kind of evaluate what we're doing in our business and stop what isn't working and recalibrate and go down a different path. That's really important. It's a big lesson about our business in general. We spend money on marketing, we spend our time doing certain things, but unless we're acknowledging that we need to test all of these things and we need to pivot if after testing we're not seeing the results we want, then we're wasting time. And we know how valuable our time is. Your time is as valuable as your client's time. It's not any less valuable. So let's treat it that way. So I appreciate it. Anyone else want to add anything that they do to get them in the right mental or physical state to make any calls?
I can add.
Yes, Adam.
For me, I prepare myself so I won't move from my desk for the whole time. Like I'll get my coffee, my water next to me. Back in the days, I used to have my pack of cigarettes next to me. So to spend like an hour or whatever target I put for myself, I have to know before I start what are my targets for the day for the cold calling, like number of calls I'm gonna make, number of appointments I'm gonna do. So yeah, these kind of stuff. And for sure I have to be on an office, like sitting in the desk, so I can get into the mood of doing business.
That's really great. Thank you for sharing, Adam. Yeah, I mean, the environment has a lot to do with this, and I realize it's challenging now. You know, a lot of us are working from home, so there's a lot of temptation or things that can get in the way right outside of our office door, our bedroom door, wherever we're making these calls from. So how do we block out the noise? And it's different for everybody, but having a setting that you know is going to work for you will do so much. Really, I promise. Don't discount that. Get yourself into that mindset, whatever it might be. Because if you are relaxed, your prospect will be relaxed too. So we talked about research, you know, which is part of the preparation. Making sure that however you're cold calling, it's in your distinct voice. We're not going to get anywhere with having a voice that sounds like somebody else, having a script that sounds like somebody else. It's not going to work. You're not going to believe it. The person that you're calling is not going to believe it. And the most important thing, you don't need to do it. Your voice is the only thing that matters. Your distinct way of communicating is the only thing that matters. So don't feel like you have to say, if you don't say these certain words, then the call is going to be lost. That's really not what this is about. So find some comfort in that. Just be you. I mean, that's what we're really talking about. So a really good way that I've found over the years is to practice these what if scenarios. So you're on a call, the person says, I'm not interested. 99% of real estate professionals after that point would say, sorry to bother you, or have a nice day, or I'll try you back in a month, because that's easier. It's easy for us to say, you know what, that call didn't work out, I'm just going to move on to the next one. But keep in mind, a lot of people have this autopilot response of saying no before they say yes, because who knows how many calls they've received before the call that we made where they didn't get value out of the conversation. Or who knows what mood we're catching them in that day, or who knows where they are in their lives. But I would impress upon all of you to not let your prospect off the hook. You know, as a professional, that you have a lot of value you can communicate to them. And I'm not saying that they have to be a buyer or seller on that phone call. That's not what this is about. This is about building relationships. We're not selling products that people dispose of. We want to put ourselves forward with our own personality and build these relationships. I've worked on transactions that started from a phone call that I didn't end up actually completing a transaction with that client until 4 or sometimes 5 years later. And that's okay, because they go into your database, you keep in touch with them, you put them in some sort of a drip campaign, you make sure you're communicating with them during the holidays, the important dates of their birthdays, any milestones in their professional lives. There's easy ways to kind of keep in touch with that prospect. But it starts with this call, right? Our phone is our catalyst for making money. You know, that is something that you have this phone, we have these smartphones, they can do so much. People still want to feel the emotion of someone's voice. So a lot of times also, a lot of real estate professionals will say, okay, I'm just going to text somebody, or I'm just going to email somebody. That is essentially the same thing as letting a prospect off the hook, because it's a passive action. What do we have to do? We have to wait to hope that someone texts us back. We have to hope that someone emails us back. It's not the same as connecting with somebody. So even though technology serves us in massive amounts of ways, there is still something to be said for hearing the emotion in someone's voice. Because ultimately, the biggest goal of your cold call is to get this face-to-face meeting, because that's when you can really show who you are. You can show the value of the person you're talking to. So that's really big. So we talk about these what if scenarios. If someone says, I'm not interested, yes, you can let them off the hook and say, okay, have a nice day. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is your time. Instead, what if you said, oh, I totally understand that you're not interested in buying or selling. That's actually not even what I'm calling about. I was actually calling back because I've talked to some of your neighbors, because I'm a local realtor in your neighborhood, and they've actually really benefited from knowing more about the ADU regulations, that now it's easier for them to build ADUs based on the average lot size in your neighborhood that I work in, which is 8,500. So they know they have the space to really be able to build that out and generate some potential rental income. So I'm not even actually calling you about wanting you to engage in a buy or a sell. I'm really just talking to you about what your neighbors have really loved to hear about and what they've appreciated. It goes from you letting your client off the hook to you transferring what, the topic that you're discussing, and maybe you get a different result. There's no harm in trying. A good way to look at cold calling is really, it's just a game. And we know that all games have usually points or numbers attached to them. So the more we do it, the better our chances are to getting a positive outcome. And as Adam was talking about being in this certain environment, also have a numerical goal for how many calls you want to do in a given session. Have something you're reaching for. If you say, okay, or if you want to say, I'm going to call for an hour straight or an hour and a half straight, then I'll take a 10-minute break. Don't let yourself off the hook. Really do that. Follow through with it. It doesn't matter the outcome you're getting. There's a 5 more rule, which is, doing 5 more of one thing when you're ready to quit. And I've talked about this before. And it's something that is incredibly powerful. Whether you're doing, 5 more reps at the gym, whether you're giving yourself 5 more minutes of relaxation time, whatever it is, that 5 more rule sometimes gets us from stopping early. And that 5 more, the reason why it's so powerful is because whatever it is, that is what you're stretching to, which will create a new foundation for you and create a new benchmark for you to move forward. So the more we look at our businesses that way, the more likelihood we will have success, because we're stretching more each day. It's not, I'm saying I'm going to do 50 more, just 5, something that we can all digest easily. But over time, we know small actions lead to big results. So it's going to let us really grow. And what's the outcome? That we're going to have some financial benefit. We're going to grow our database. We're going to be able to do more deals. This is all why we're doing this. So anyone have any questions on anything so far? No, okay.
The best time is to call.
Great question. Hey, Rochelle. So the best time to call, of what research has shown us most currently, is between 9 and 11 or 9 and 11:30. So it's the morning hours. Why is that? Well, people generally get a lot of calls, as you all do, from people that they necessarily weren't planning on talking to that day. So other people that are calling them to pitch their business ideas. At a certain point, people become tired, and they have these, they want to say no before yes, like we talked about. In the morning, people are generally more open. So I know I am. I know I'm going to pick up a call in the morning from a number that I don't know, more likely in the morning than I am in the afternoon. It's a little different sometimes with real estate professionals, because we kind of have to pick up the phone most of the time. But in the morning, there is a lot more openness to who we are as people. In the afternoon, it changes a little bit. Now, there is a caveat to that. If you know your specific database, is more reachable from 5 to 7 or 4 to 6, some of that like beginning evening hours, then do what is going to get you the best outcome from your database. This is never a one-size-fits-all approach. We also know that because of what we talked about before, cold calling is not number one on the list of the fun activities to do in the day. It's much better to attack those activities in the morning. You can call it getting them over with. You can call it, pushing through the challenges, whatever it might be. If we do it in the morning, we know it's done for the day. And then we can follow up on the other things that are as important in the afternoon. So it's just about, sometimes it just feels good getting things done right away. Feels good accomplishing these goals right in the morning. So that's the answer. And also what happens is if you call people in the morning and you don't reach them, you might get a call back in the afternoon, and you still have that open schedule to be able to address someone's concerns, or even just promote your own business during that same business day. So that becomes really important too. And as far as leaving voicemails, not leaving voicemails, there's not really a right answer. My big suggestion is, if you're going to leave a voicemail, have a call to action in there. Have something that feels so undeniable that the person you're leaving a message for will feel like they're making a bad decision by not calling you back. So just really promote yourself on that voicemail, not how many properties you've sold in the neighborhood. No one cares, newsflash, but give them something of value. The one thing people will always gravitate towards is what has worked for their neighbors. As humans, that's part of social proof. We make decisions based on reviews or accolades, and you do it when you go on Amazon. You're going to look at the product that has more positive reviews and that has been reviewed more heavily than the one that doesn't. So keep that in mind. Go big with the voicemail if you're going to do it. And if you don't leave voicemail, that's fine too. Just make sure you have your cold calls well organized so you can circle back with those people so they're not lost to you. And that brings up a good point. Make sure you have all this information organized. We want to research before the call. We want to understand. We always have to know more than the neighbors know, than the people that you're calling. So that's really important. So do a little digging. Find out from neighbors when you do connect with them, what are their concerns about where the neighborhood is going? What do they like about the neighborhood? Open-ended questions are great. They're much better because it elongates the conversation. With all cold calls, it's not about how do I stay on the phone for 20 minutes. That's not what this is about. It's how do I stay on the phone for 30 seconds more, 30-second increments. So that should hopefully take some of the pressure off, right? It's not about how do we have this long conversation, which leads to these people inviting me over for dinner. That's not what this is. It's just how do we stay on for a little longer, build a little more trust with every 30-second increment. So that's really important. But make sure you have this information organized so you can circle back, because those people that you're calling, you're going to call them again. And if you are able to have notes on that first call, how different is it going to feel when you call them the second time? When you're like, hi, Terry. Yeah, we talked a couple of months ago and you were telling me that, your grass was too long. And I ended up, if you recall, I ended up referring you a couple of gardeners that would do it at a minimal charge. Remember, I even offered to pay for it myself, just as kind of a good faith gesture. Did you ever call any of the people that I gave you those resources for? You have some foundation at that point. That person is not going to hang up on you. They're not. They might have to figure out who you are. That's okay. But after that, there's going to be a little bit of trust that's built, and they're going to give you more of your time. And then ultimately, if the call goes great on the first one, it can lead to something like, hey, if you were going to move, because we already talked about things that you loved about your house, And we also talked about things that you would love your house to have that it doesn't currently have. And we talked about that you have one more child on the way, and you really could use that extra bedroom. If you were to move, what neighborhood would you like to move into? What would this new house look like to you? You get people into that dream state where their emotions are really evoked. And what's going to happen next? You can easily say to them, hey, I'm happy to send you homes that are based on this conversation that I think will really help you. If nothing else, just evaluate. Something happened with my computer here. Sorry. Something that will just really evaluate where they can go to next. So that's something that's really critical. And how does that conversation change? You're really building something with somebody that becomes long lasting. So create that environment. Does anyone have any strong kind of rehearsed openers that they've used in the past that they want to share? Or anything that anyone has even heard that they like, but that they've never even tried, but seems like it could be beneficial? Nobody? Okay. Well, try out all different ones. There's no harm with someone says no thank you and the conversation ends, and you try out one on a different person, you might get a different outcome. So just have fun with it. Try out different. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I heard of one this morning. I haven't used it. I just heard of it. It's
Yes.
Another top agent was using. Who do you go to with your real estate questions?
I love that. It's simple and awesome.
Yeah, that came from a MAPS coach.
Yeah, I love that one. And that gives you the canvas to talk about that you are the authority. You don't have to do it in a boastful way, but bring up information that would lead them to believe that you know their neighborhood as well, if not better than they do. And you also have an edge on the market because you are at the forefront of real estate trends. So I love that one, because they're either going to say, yeah, we have someone who's great, and then you can that continues the conversation, and you can say, oh, just for my own professional education as I'm trying to grow, what makes them great? Why have you done 5 transactions with them, or why have you referred them to all your friends? Because what can happen also, as you've heard the expression, we are only as good as our last deal, or we are only as good as our last year of productivity. Sometimes those great professionals end up changing the way they do business, and there might be an opening for you to engage with that same person. But that's a free call to learn about what matters to them. And oftentimes what matters to them is going to matter to their neighbors too. I love that, Roxanne. That's a great one. Hopefully everyone wrote that one down. Anyone else have one that they think?
What if you say that if you can get the price you wanted for your property, would you consider selling?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the straightforward ones do work. You have to catch someone kind of on the right day. I would probably couple that with talking about how, with interest rates being at historic lows, buyers have such increased purchase power, and coupled with low inventory as well, there's been no greater time for a seller to at least be curious about getting the most amount of money for their home. So I would kind of expand that. But yeah, I mean, the simple, straightforward ones work sometimes too. The key is, like we talked about these what if scenarios, to have a lot of different options in your tool bag. Because we talked about, if someone says no thank you, we don't want to get off the phone with them. We want to get the most out of these phone calls. So we want to engage with them on a different topic. Eventually something's going to hit. Even if they're not interested in anything you have to say, the point that Roxanne brought up before, you're going to be seen as a trusted professional in the neighborhood, because you know enough. You don't have to know everything. It's not about that. And if they ask you a question that you don't know, I don't know is a great answer. As long as you say, I don't know, but I'm happy to find out and get back to you today, and do that. And that response time will also really contribute to their desires of choosing you eventually as.
Your sound cut out.
You're muted.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Okay, we're back. Anyone else have one that either they've heard of or that they've tried, even if they've tried and it hasn't worked out? Anyone else kind of want to volunteer? Phyllis, I see you there. What's up, Phyllis?
Well, I was thinking you could, sorry, I thought your class was at 10:30. It said
Yeah,
on the
was
schedule
just
yesterday said 10:30, and then the schedule
Yeah.
today says 10. I'm like, did I miss 30 minutes?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea why it said 10:30. It was
Oh.
10:30 1 week because it conflicted with something else, but they're always Thursday at 10. So.
Yeah. Well, I have, that thing we just talked about this week on the agent town hall about the revive, which is renew, that's an interesting way to approach somebody that has an older home that you can see from the outside, that you offer that service somehow. I mean, that's something I was going to maybe use. We were talking about that with Aaron and Kristen, and we were talking about using that on some upcoming calls that we have.
Absolutely. Show of hands, like who thinks that's a great intro? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated. And that's part of the point here.
And I mean, their house can look nice from the outside, but what was really drew us all in are those before and after pictures with the revive, or it's called renew or whatever it's called, but
right.
But the before and after pictures are great. So, and it just gives you better pictures for your listings if you can get one. And so it's a strong tool to show somebody that needs their home fixed up before a sale, or the outside of their home, or landscaping, anything.
Exactly. It is really, really strong. And even if they're not ready for those suite of services today, they might know someone who is.
Yeah. And it's just another reason to start a conversation, and hopefully you can get their info because again, like what you're saying is you're an expert telling them something that they may have not heard of.
Exactly. Even people that are successful professionals who have reached whatever heights in their career, they're never going to know as much as you. That's got to feel pretty empowering. I mean, that's an incredible feeling that should really sit with all of us. It's something that will never change. And so anytime you have an opportunity to talk about something that they haven't heard before, that's going to put you to the top of their list when they're about to make that decision. So that's really big. Phyllis, great contribution. I appreciate it. Anyone else? I mean, we have all these resources, internally, and Phyllis is bringing up one of them. So, this is something that we have to be really forward facing on. Does anyone have some fear that they want to kind of address right on this phone call? Because most likely if you do, other people do as well. Anyone want to bring something up of what has stopped them from cold calling in the past?
Most of the time, Justin, I call the people, they are not home, and I leave a message for them. I don't have that much success with that. They don't usually call you back. I call them in different time. I haven't done so many calls in the morning, but usually I do early afternoon or sometime late in the evening. A few people I call, they said they are not interested. I don't know anybody of my neighbor who's interested, or the other one, I leave a message for them. I don't have that much success with them to get the answer from them.
What does your message sound like? What is your voice? What are you saying on that message?
I would say to them that if you know anybody who's interested to market this property for sale, I have a lot of people who want to buy property in your area. I just don't have enough listing. I was wondering if you know anybody who's interested to market his property, that I can get in touch with him. Or sometimes I use the same method as used before, that if you can get the price you wanted for your property, would you consider selling? If this interests you, if you could get your price, would you consider selling?
Right. Yeah, and that's a good voicemail. What I would encourage is try out some different ones, because most likely the voicemails that they're getting from other real estate professionals sounds similar to that.
Mhm.
And so how do they differentiate between you and somebody else? You
I
know,
get the interest rate, that interest idea is a good. Inventory is low, interest rate is high, is low. I mean, that might be good target to attack them.
yeah, that's definitely a good talking point while you're on the call with them, or even on a voicemail. But I would also just suggest that you even expanded it further and talk about, you know, yourself as a professional or what's going on in their neighborhood.
Mhm.
Because if they're hearing kind of a similar voicemails from different people, how are they going to know that you actually are the best person for them to call back? So
Maybe
that's
if
the
you
thing.
have a ready buyer in your voicemail, like I have a ready buyer. If you're interested in selling, please call me back. In a way, like add it to the voicemail.
Exactly, right. So
Mm.
you already have somebody, and I would maybe even consider taking a step further, like giving a bit of a very general profile, because we can't give specific profiles because of the new kind of laws. But you can say, you know, I have a family that I'm representing who's identified your home as one they've been really interested in. And, you know, I acknowledge that your home is now on the market. So this is not meant to be a solicitation of a listing. But if you're curious at all about getting an offer that is at the top of the market, please give me a call back. So it's saying the same thing, but you're adding a little more flavor to it, you know, that can help. And because we also have to acknowledge we're not the only one that are calling the people in your database. Okay. So that's, you know, when we think, oh, I'm just making, other people are calling these people too. The same day, if not the same day, the next day, the day before.
I've heard that the Aaron Kerman group is just like banging out texts and calls, and like all the people on the Aaron Kerman team are just like, hey, we're, the property in your area is sold, or I have a buyer for your property. And like people are getting, like, other agents have mentioned that their clients are getting like bombarded from them. So that's interesting that the client is remembering that, because that's how hard that team is hitting.
So what is that? So that's a great point. So what does that tell you, right? We have a real estate agent. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's one of the top real estate agents in the country. He's doing with his team. He has like a 40-person team. So.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, I knew a team was big. I didn't know it was that big.
It is 30, 40. It's, you know, it's the size of a small brokerage. But he's doing it because
for the market share.
Exactly. He's right. He's doing it because he knows there are results if you do it enough times. So if we're taking a page out of a mega agent, mega agent, and he's doing it, does that feel a little better for us to do it? If we already know the outcome, if I were to tell you on this call, okay, go with me to imagination land for a second, whatever your goal is, say you want to make 250, 500, a million, whatever it might be, doesn't matter. If I were to tell you that, okay, let's look back on this year, you've made the 500, but the only way you got there is by making X number of calls a day that are prepared, where you really conducted yourself like professional, you built trust, you built relationships, but you got to this 500. But you had to make these 50, 60 calls, or if you're on a dialer, maybe it's 200. Would you do it? If you already know the outcome, would you do it? You would do it. I'm seeing a nod from Aaron, and I think Aaron speaks for the group. So, you know, you would do it, because you already see, okay, this is what I get for my efforts. Well, I'm here to tell you that is what's going to happen. It's not the only way to get business. Far from it. That's not what this call is about. But if we know that the highest producing agents across the country, whether it's an agent in Los Angeles, an agent in New York, San Francisco, Miami, they are all doing this. If they themselves aren't doing it, someone on their team is doing it for them. Because we should never try to complicate real estate, because it's not a complicated industry. It's complex, but not complicated. So if we know that this one action will lead to certain results, what is stopping us from doing it? And we talked about the fear in the beginning of this conversation. And we already talked about what are the examples of the bad things that can happen when someone calls. Someone hangs up on you, profanity. That's as bad as it gets. That's it. And also just a note, because I've talked about this with several people that I've coached, don't waste your time and try to turn people that are being rude to you into nice people. Don't waste your time. Move on to the next call. You know, don't waste your time saying, why are you talking to me that way? Like, forget about it. You know, whether you caught them at the right moment, wrong day, wrong personality, wrong time of the year, it doesn't matter. If you stay on the phone with them and try to kind of question why they're being rude, you're just wasting your own time, and your time is precious, precious. So if you were talking about a 9 o'clock cold calling time, which hopefully we can adhere to, get yourself in that mode a half an hour beforehand. You know, role play in the mirror, have a role play partner. I know that, you know, a coaching program that I'm building this year, we're going to be doing these cold calling as a group for 2 hours a day, at least 3 days a week. And sometimes people feel a little better about that. We're going to put our Zooms on mute, and we know that we're going to see other people doing the same things. That helps us build the motivation. That's okay. This is, you know, even though we all have our own businesses in real estate, it doesn't mean that we have to go through this alone. Lean on your colleagues. What you're feeling, other people are probably feeling also. The challenges that you're having, other people are having those same challenges. And here's the good news, okay? There's enough business to go around for everybody. That's the real truth. So if we engage with each other, if we role play, if we bounce ideas off each other, like, you know, some of the examples that have been brought up on this phone call, which are fantastic examples, use those. There were at least 3 to 4 really good examples of cold calling, you know, successful openers. If we have a successful opener, the likelihood of us getting further in the conversation increases exponentially. You know, we're just trying to break through that initial no. So I would really encourage you to kind of share with each other of what has worked for you. You'll get it back, and it'll feel good, and you'll practice, and we'll all kind of get better together. So that's a big thing. Does anyone have any conversations about kind of this topic that I can answer at all, or anything they're kind of feeling around this?
I just want to add something. In my
Please.
past job, I used to do direct sales, business to business, and it's like the same idea of cold calling. Whenever you go into a business, you have like 30 seconds to do your pitch and to see and figure out the early objections. We call them. We used to call them early objections because, as you said, usually people say no without even thinking from the unconscious mind. So we have some tricks. And the other thing that you said, I just want to like make sure everybody knows how important it is that we used to do a practice pitch every morning with each other. So we warm up, we remember the scripts that we have, we remember the objections. We go through a whole process of really selling the product that we used to sell. We used to sell the AT&T. So practicing is like the most important thing for me. It accelerated my results really fast because I was like still new to the country, but with this practice every morning, it became super easy for me. And whenever I go in any business, I'm more confident because I know what I want from this business, and I know what to look for and what to ignore and how to take control of the whole conversation. So yeah, just wanted to add this.
Thank you for adding that. That is awesome. You see what's happening here. You know, we do enough of these healthy, productive tasks with consistency, and we have the best chance of getting great results. So we all have our challenges, but the more we get ourselves in that frame of mind of doing it, we can break through those. You know, something we didn't talk about in the beginning of the call, but we can address now is some people have fear of sounding like a typical salesperson, you know, and our database thinking that, oh, this person is selling me something that I don't need, some sort of snake oil. But let's be really clear about who we are as professionals. We are dream facilitators. We are value creators. Unless the housing market is strong, the economy is not strong. Okay? We are considered essential workers. Let that sink in for a little bit. With the most important people in our community, that is us as well. So anytime you're having these doubts about the identity of your profession, think about those things. We are needed. We will always be needed. We will always be guides for people, for our clients. And so that has to really, that hopefully will sit close to your heart, because it's really true, and it should give you the kind of canvas to be bold and to communicate your worth when you're talking to people. We are all of those things and many more. There's no other profession where you wear so many different hats and you have to do it within such a short amount of time and adhere to certain guidelines, and to be a quarterback over so many different people to make sure everybody is doing their job effectively, where the blame will always go back to you. I don't know any other profession like that. So it is a powerful profession. And you all are giving back to people that need your service. Sometimes they don't know it at first, right? And that's part of what we're talking about. You know, but the more you communicate to them, the more you build trust with them, the more you can build these long-lasting relationships. Every top producing agent will tell you that the way they build these relationships is by consistently being in their client's world, is consistently adding value, contributing, caring. This is a human business. If we show that we care, if we use our own distinct voice on these calls to show that we care, we are 95% there. 95, not 50. That should feel good in itself. We're 95% there. People just want people that they feel like care about them. It's what we want. We want it to be unfiltered, to be in your own distinct voice, and you will get results. So are you, just by a show of hands, based on what we've talked about over this last hour, are you feeling a little better about taking on these calls? I see some head nods, some hand raises. Good. Fatima, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was just saying how you were saying people have fear of sounding like a salesperson when first starting to talk to them. I think the biggest way to not feel like that is just to have whatever your opening line is needs to be really relatable, and you need to build their trust within that first line. So that way you don't come off as a robot, or you don't come off like you're selling something, because you don't immediately have to talk to them about what the purpose of the call is on the first line, but you want to build in trust and you want to build in interest with them, with what you're first talking to them about. So that way, when it comes to that time, they don't feel overwhelmed or just bombarded by what you're trying to get out from them.
Exactly. And thanks for the contribution. That's great. Be a human first. You can ask people, hey, how are you doing today? You're allowed to do that. You know, just move forward with empathy first. If they're dealing with something that is challenging in their neighborhood, in their lives, Like, this is about people. We all come to the conversation with our own preconceived notions about a lot of things. So that's great. I appreciate that contribution. That's awesome. Anyone else have anything they want to add or any kind of last questions?
Well, I'll go. I haven't done as much cold calling as some of the people in the room, but what I have to keep telling myself all the time is, and this is true, is that most people were really nice. Everybody, most people were really nice. Very few people, actually nobody was rude, but some people were less nice than others. And I haven't done it as much, so I'm sure you get some people who are tired of getting phone calls. But I have to just keep telling myself that, you know, most people are okay and most people are pretty nice about it. And if they don't want to talk about it, they'll be polite and just tell you that they're not. It's what I do, not interested. And the other thing is, I have a lot of friends in my database who are pretty significant executives at studios. And in their own way, they're salespeople too. They know when you call, they're selling something too. Whatever they're doing, they're selling what they're doing. When they got to where they are, because they sold them either themselves or whatever time on commercial time or whatever they sold, they've sold, and they know how important sales is. It's always the most important department at every company. And it's nothing to worry about, but we all do. And so we got to get over that hump. But yeah, I mean, those two things I keep trying to tell myself and convince myself. And you know, the more we do, I guess, the more it'll sink in.
That is so great. Thank you for that. We are all in sales. No matter
Everybody.
what business you're in sales.
Mhm.
So, you know, come to the conversation with a client success story. If you're brand new and you've never done a transaction, you have a success story from a previous profession that will relate to whatever you're talking about. You know, and mirroring the tone of the person you're talking to is also really important. You know, if they have a big voice and all, you know, you can mirror that. So that's really important too. Get on the level that the person you're talking to is on. You know, that's the tone can be really important with all these calls. So this was great. I think everybody hopefully is ready to tackle this. And it's one of those things that we have to keep doing, keep practicing. The more we do it, the more comfortable we will be as anything in life, public speaking, sports, writing, cooking, whatever it is. We know that practice leads to you know, more prepared atmosphere, and which will lead to better results. So I want to thank everybody for joining today. I know there's another call coming in, another class at 11. So thank you again. This whole class, all my classes this month will be about prospecting. I've decided January is prospecting month to make sure you're all kind of getting going. So just check the calendar for next week. And it's going to be another class about a different type of prospecting. We're going to do the whole January month of prospecting. So thanks everybody for joining. Love the contributions. Have a great rest of the
Bye.
day.
Thank you.
Justin.
Thank you.
Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.